Hey guys, we're back with another episode of Find Your Film. We actually just taped a mini segment with our close friend and cinematics group member Angie Clark. We talk about the Elie Kazan film, wonderful film, Wild River, which she purchased over at Entertainmart. Thanks to Eric Holmes and his occasional giveaway that he does. Eric Holmes, when are our listeners going to get some more of those wonderful cool card gifts that you? When are they coming with? When are you coming in with the heat with those $25 gift cards? Coming soon, Eric Holmes?
Betty, soon. Betty, soon. I mean, actually, we could probably do it next week if you want.
Okay, we'll see what happens. No, I'm not. Hey, you know what? I say this in the mini segment. It's not a joke. As a now crypto addict, I'm never going to force people into buying things because I am all tapped out when it comes to the coin. But you know what? Enough of crypto. Enough of the whole Entertainmart. Enough of Wild River. We're gonna get to that. Here's the thing about this episode, Eric Holmes. You made a bold declaration via our messages. What did you want to tease our listeners regarding the strength? Hopefully, the hopeful strength of this episode. What are you loving about it?
As far as the movies we're covering today, at the very least, the three main features, it's gonna be a hard one to top. We have three fantastic movies to talk about. So I'll just show my cards. We got three damn near masterpieces to talk about. Three classics to talk about.
Oh, you said three damn near masterpieces, and then you anteed up and you said three masterpieces. Bruce Purkey. When I think of masterpieces, I only think of three masterpieces. The Painted Bird, number one. Number two is The Painted Bird, and number three is The Painted Bird.
Bruce, you forgot Tenet, but
we got Tenet. I'm sorry, Bruce. Okay, Bruce Purkey. Are these near masterpieces, or are they masterpieces? All three of them. What do you say? What?
There's some really good movies going on here. I would agree. I think we're masterpieces. Maybe.
Well, one of them for sure.
If we're trying to debate whether between their masterpieces or really good movies, I think we're still in a pretty great boat. So,
in fairness to Bruce Purkey, who tried to dial it down, you're really not dialing down when we're talking about A plus, and A, and at their very worst, an A-. So we're good. We're good to go. I'm not going to even pussyfoot around here. The three movies we're covering: The Killing of Two Lovers. What's the other one? Riders of Justice. You know what? For some reason, that moniker doesn't really stick with me, but the movie itself does. And last, but I thought was going to be definitely least, was The Djinn. Is that correct? Am I pronouncing it right, Bruce Purkey? The Djinn?
Yes, I say Cold Gin, and now we're going to go into a Kiss song. It's no.
These are all movies that you can watch on Friday. There are a lot of high-profile movies that are coming out. Possibly a Zack Snyder film might be coming out this week as well. We haven't gotten to it. Look, I'm sure that movie might be great as well, because I know the Holmes truth, Eric Holmes and Bruce, not so darn very good. I just saw that for the Wild River thing. Bruce Purkey, these two guys, they're the biggest Zack Snyder fans in the world.
Yeah, there's gonna be like a zombie tiger. I heard about it. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna have so much character development. Like each one of its stripes, we're gonna find out how it got there. It's gonna be so good.
Eric Holmes, was Bruce Purkey being sarcastic, or are you enjoying the sarcasm, or are you gonna throw in your dry wit regarding Zack Snyder and his brilliance? Are you gonna throw something? What are you gonna throw?
Well, I'll start off by saying that I don't hate Zack Snyder. I think some of his let's pump the brakes on Justice League. It was marginally better than the one that came before it, is what I'll say.
Okay, marginally. Okay, we're not going to talk about Snyder Cut.
Yeah,
we're going to start off right now. Okay, and we're gonna have a couple of quick movie recommendations. Bruce Purkey and Eric, we're gonna have a really nice talk about the movie Rudderless regarding a what's in the box thing. So if you are a fan of Anton Yelchin and Billy Crudup and William H. Macy, Rudderless, that might be, or Selena Gomez, that's something that we're gonna be talking about at the end of it. Oh, don't shake the head, Bruce Purkey. I just outed you to
Selena Gomez. Thank you. No.
Okay. We're gonna be talking about Rudderless, as I like to say, to bring up the rear. I'm going to defend.
Round out the rear is what you like to do, according to the last episode.
Okay. Yes, according to the last episode. Okay, you know what? Let's just start right now. The Killing of Two Lovers. It hits theaters in on demand May 14th. I have been blabbing out. I either Bruce or Eric, I'm just going to say, I'm going to do the very quick plot synopsis. It centers on this man. He is it centers in a small town. And I don't even know, Eric Holmes, you're going to vote. Do we even mention what's the first opening frame shot, or do we let what do you guys think? Do we let the viewers experience the opening moments? Even though it's in the trailer,
I would say skip it, because it's kind of we'll just say it starts off strong.
Okay, excellent.
And kind of dance around it, because, well, I'll let you go, and then I'll say a couple things. But
okay, Clayne Crawford, he plays this guy named David. David is a divorce. He's about to be divorced. He's in the middle of a separation with his wife. Okay, his wife is played by Sebede Moafi. She plays Nikki. So it's a relationship story with David and Nikki. David is filled with rage in the beginning of the story. It is a very shocking and memorable opening sequence. You will not get it out of your head. You will never, ever forget. This is unforgettable opening for The Killing of Two Lovers. That will draw you in just as a genre film right from the get-go. So it starts off with David and a very interesting encounter that will leave you, might leave you emotionally scarred for the opening moments. So ultimately, the movie centers on how David is trying his best to work his marital problems with Nikki. They have, I believe, three kids, and that's really the crux of the movie. Nikki wants to move on with her life. She's seeing someone else. That encaps David's rage even increases because of that. Because bottom line, no matter David and Nikki, they started off as a young couple. They're now probably in their early 30s. Maybe both of them want to live their own lives, especially Nikki. But ultimately, the focus is on the welfare and the benefit of their children. David especially is very focused on their children. The only problem is, as much as he's a great dad, but he does have these issues regarding rage and aggression. Bruce Purkey, what did I leave out? Anything else regarding the plot synopsis? What did you think? By the way, it's directed and penned by Robert Machoyan.
I don't think you left anything out. I think that we're not going to say what the opening shot and short sequence involves, but let's just say that it colors everything for the whole movie, because you have a certain sort of expectation based on that keeps you, I guess, tense, I guess is what I would say, throughout the entire movie, even to a level you might not have been. It might have grown to that level, but you wouldn't start at that level if it didn't start the way this movie starts. I was struck by a few things. So you talk about him, dealing with his rage and their relationship and all this. And I think what it really does, it's interesting, is that, first of all, this movie is very, very grounded. It is not stylized version of relationships. It doesn't, it seems very realistic. And instead of, I guess what I would describe as this, he is in that situation where he is kind of balancing this kind of quote agreement that they have. They're kind of on a separation, but he thinks that the separation is so they can work on things, but yet they're allowed to date other people. But when that actually starts to happen, how his inability to actually deal with the reality of that changes things. And I think all of that is done very subtly and very almost bleakly honest, And the other thing I'll bring up, and I'll stop talking, but I'll bring up something else that I thought was really interesting about this. A couple things are, the director will do things where he'll shoot certain scenes where it seems like he just literally has the camera locked down, like on the passenger door of a car. Like he might on the passenger door of a truck, and our main character is driving the truck, and you'll drive with him from place to place in this town. And this town is a rural town, like in the middle of nowhere, it seems like, next to some mountains. And it seems so small. It seems like one of those towns you could look from one end of it to the other and see the other end of the town very easily. So you get these scenes where he'll go around like 2 or 3 corners and he's at the next location, and you went the whole way with him and it did not take that long. So you get that feeling that you're in one of these places where everybody knows everybody. There are no secrets in this town. That's kind of the impression I got. And that just kind of adds to this kind of crucible that you're stuck in with them.
Regarding impressions, Bruce, and I want to throw it to you, Eric, the movie shot in a 4:3 ratio, which was recently used in a couple of years back in The Lighthouse. What did you think of that style right from the get-go? Do you think we needed it? Did you like it along with the other kind of just visual style of the movie, or the choices?
This is going to sound weird, but I didn't even remember that until you mentioned it. In my mind, this movie was shot on widescreen, but probably because it's set, in a pretty much flatlands. You know, the mountains are in the background, but yeah, I remember this movie as being in widescreen, which it clearly isn't. But
Wait,
for some reason, that's
Bruce, did you notice that? Am I completely wrong about this?
No, I noticed it. I have this experience with these boxy aspect ratios. I'm almost always annoyed by them at the beginning. They almost always tend to be good movies. I don't know why that is the case. And I rarely think they add anything to it. But as long as they do what they did to Eric, which they did to me too, it's like where I basically forget about it after a while. I'm like, okay, cool. You know, it's good.
Yeah, right? I forgot about it. I was like you. I go, okay, here we go. And then I forgot. But Eric, what didn't you forget about this movie and what made it? We're talking about masterpieces. What about this? What worked about this movie for you? Why did it work? How did it work?
the aspect ratio didn't really come into play with me. I think I noticed it at one point, but I didn't even really remember it until you just brought it up just now. Not previously.
Jeez, Bruce, did you notice this? Or am I completely wrong on this whole 4-3 aspect? Am I completely wrong on this?
I totally noticed it, and I totally didn't care. So, no, it was fine. I mean, a lot of times I see this, and it bothers me at the beginning, and I'm like, "Why? We never need a boxy ratio ever, ever, ever." And then I get about 10 minutes of the movie, I forget it's there, and I'm like, "It's a great movie," and I don't care. So, would I like some of these movies to be widescreen? Sure. Does this movie need to be widescreen? Probably not. It's such a close personal movie that it works totally fine, and I don't think it detracts or adds anything. It's just a choice.
Well, Eric Holmes, you were the first person to actually lay down the gauntlet by saying this movie is a masterpiece. What makes The Killing of Two Lovers a masterpiece for you? And was it the one out of the 3 movies that you said one is a definite masterpiece, or am I wrong about this?
This one would be a near masterpiece.
Okay.
So this is not the one. This one just the way it starts off just draws you in, and it really needs to, because actually kind of describe this movie. It's not really going to do it any favors, because a lot of what this movie has going for it is how, you know, spending time with the characters and based on that opening scene, seeing how things kind of unravel. And I mean, this movie's basically about a bad relationship or a toxic relationship of 2 people trying to keep it together for the kids, air quote, for the kids. I don't know how to really sell this movie, because everything that's great about it, you kind of just have to let wash over you, because the way this movie unfolds and the way the characters interact with each other. I would say the only thing I didn't like is that the kids mentioned Mitch Hedberg, and there's no way in hell his kids know who Mitch Hedberg is, and he does not know who Mitch Hedberg is. Yeah. But that part seemed a little writerly. It's hard to explain without directly referencing that beginning, because it kind of reminded me of The Shield, the TV show The Shield, because everything that happens in The Shield hinges on that, what happens at that very first episode all the way to the very end, you know. And this kind of does a similar thing, where the thing that happens at the beginning just kind of propels the rest of the movie, and you got a bunch of fun characters, you know, fun. that was the wrong word, but you have a bunch of great, well-written characters, and the way they interact, everything seems honest. And the ending that I also can't talk about. Geez.
What do you want to say about the ending? I mean, what is your gut reaction regarding the ending?
The ending is fantastic. Yes. That was my gut reaction. So there's a thing that happens at the end, which just like the beginning, triggers another set of events, but like the last scene before the credits roll.
Oh yeah,
not at all where I thought it was going to go, and because it's almost like this movie's just building and building and building, and then it ends perfect. Like, I would never in a million years think to end a movie like this. And maybe some people will watch it, and maybe I'm overhyping it, they'll watch it and be disappointed, but this is just one of those endings where once it ended, I got chills, and I'm like, oh, this movie's fantastic. I fucking love it. I just love everything about it, except for the kids liking Mitch Hedberg, because there's no way in hell they know who Mitch Hedberg is. But
you know, in fairness, though, I mean, I'm not saying you don't know anything about kids, because you take care of kids yourself. I take care of my niece. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, I was at a flight to New York. I don't know where I was going. I think it was New York, and I had no idea how to operate the app driven thing in front of me, the menu. And this 4-year-old girl sitting right next to me just started doing all this thing, and she looked like friggin' Bill Gates next to me, just doing everything with the apps, showing me all of the. So I'm just saying, kids are really smart. Either kids are really, really smart, and I don't know, maybe they do. I don't know. Bruce, do you think they might have, the Mitch Hedberg thing was out of place, like Eric says, or do you think there's a shot? Maybe there's like a little shot these kids know who Mitch is, and maybe they or not, or is it right early, like Eric was saying? What do you think? What do you chime in? Come on.
I guess I didn't think about it at the time, but I agree with Eric. I think that is a little a little far fetched, unless somehow another adult that he didn't know about introduced them to Mitch Hedberg. That's like the only way I could explain it. But that's like writing backwards to make it fit. You know what I mean? So we have nothing. We have nothing to tell us that's the case. But that's once again, it's beside the point, kind of. So
yeah. I'm just to put a button on this. I'm not saying the kids wouldn't know who Mitch Hedberg is. I'm saying if they know who he is, the dad also knows who he is.
Fair.
But anyway, that's talk about not important at all to the movie.
No, it really isn't.
You know what? These are, there's, getting into the weeds of a movie like this is fine. You can really get into the weeds with this. But look, I consider this is a masterpiece for me. The 4:3 aspect ratio, like Bruce was saying, it boxes you in because throughout the entire narrative, by the way, this movie is less than 90 minutes. I think it's 82, 83, 84 minutes. You are just a stress ball throughout most of this movie because when you're locked into that box and you're locked into the head of David, by the way, David, we talked about he's filled with rage. He's also filled with love. He has a really cool, dry wit repartee with his father who's sickly. There are some lighter moments in The Killing of Two Lovers. This is a very layered experience, but you will be stressed up until this, when we talked about the memorable opening. The ending is holy crapola. It's just as good as Eric Holmes was describing. This whole movie to me is, for me personally, this is a 5 out of 5. This is a perfect movie. And then if there are any flaws, maybe we can get into the weeds, but overall, just great performances. This is a movie that I can't wait to watch again. Bruce Purkey, your just overall thoughts on masterpiece, near masterpiece, or just excellent, whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you guys. This is a very, very, very good movie. This is, it is right on a level close to masterpiece. I guess this is one of those movies. We were talking about the Pawnbroker on our director spotlight with Sidney Lumet.
Thank you, Bruce Purkey.
One of the comments that we had about that movie was it was great, but I don't know if I want to be with this character again. I don't know if I want to watch it again. This is almost one of those kind of movies too, where it's like, it's so truthful and so harrowing emotionally in a lot of ways that do you want to go through it again? Maybe. But is it the kind of movie like you might think of something else as a masterpiece? You might give it that extra level because it's something you just love to watch again. It's a world you want to live in. And that might be that extra sauce that this doesn't quite have. But that is personal taste, right? I just want to reiterate, too, that final act is incredible. And one of the things I want to also bring about this movie does, the writing of this is so good about this thing about how when you are in a relationship or in a conversation and people know how to push each other's buttons and they trigger each other and they don't know how to stop themselves, and how a fight will escalate in this movie. The way that he escalates things it seems so truthful, and you're just all the way through. You're just like, no, don't do that. No, you're gonna send the kids away now. Oh, no, that's worse. And then no. And it's like all the time you're seeing things happen. And you're just like, oh crap. And I want to point out other things because there's these two layers going on with his main character, because he's, he's the awesome father, but you also have this level of tension with him where you'll have little scenes that really seem innocuous. Like he's loading this, he's kind of having a semi-argument conversation with his ex-wife, maybe. And he's loading this punching dummy into the back of his truck the whole time. And just little scenes like that. But then when that scene pays off, it's like, wow, that just, it's a level of detail that enriches the movie and it allows you to see the scenes with levels and levels and levels. I think it's really excellent.
I'm gonna put a button on this, Eric Holmes. I rarely swear, but was the two words "holy fuck" or "holy shit"? Did that cross your mind during one of the moments in the final act?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
couple times. Yeah.
And the weird thing is when the thing happened, I didn't know it was gonna happen, but when it did, I was like, of course, that's what's gonna happen.
Yep.
Like that's what. But I wanted to jump in on what Bruce said about, because that there's a version of this movie where the guy just keeps making bad decisions, and the wife is nothing but a bitch, and then that's the dynamic, and it kind of is, but it goes a little deeper than that, because she's angry with him, she's frustrated with him when he's trying to keep things together, and then when she's trying to keep things together, now he's flipping out. So they're either high or low, but they're never high and low at the same time. Their wavelengths are off just enough to keep their relationship just
Off
never
kilter.
working. Yeah.
And I know we need to move on, but also on to what Eric is saying. Also, that is done because by seeing the two levels of what his character is like, you see how he acts, but you also see what he's doing that other people don't see what he's doing. And that tells you a level of him too, because if he's doing that now, he hasn't just flipped on a switch and become that character. That's probably manifested in other ways. So they both have some really serious flaws, and it isn't just her, and he isn't just the misunderstood dude that's trying to, whatever.
Who played the wife? Because we haven't talked too much about her,
Yeah,
but she's absolutely fantastic, and her character, again, like I said, there's a version of her character where she's just the bitch, and that's it. And no, her character has just as many layers to her in this, because like she gets angry, but you totally get why, because you see how he's acting towards her, and then she's trying to keep it together, and it all works. They're real people.
So good.
In a lesser movie, her character would be like you said, the antagonist or whatever, and she's a fully fleshed human being, like pretty much most everyone is in The Killing of Two Lovers, which opens in theaters and on demand May 14th. Truth be told, listeners, viewers, we can talk about The Killing of Two Lovers for about several hours. This is just our capsulized version, because guess what? We have two near masterpieces or masterpieces coming right down the pike. Speaking of which, Eric Holmes, I'm going to let you choose the next one. What's the next near masterpiece or masterpiece that you want to talk about?
Well, I guess we'll not bury the lead. I want to go to the straight up masterpiece, or at least what I think it is.
Okay.
The Djinn.
Oh, yes. That is it.
Okay.
What?
The Killing of Two Lovers and the
Riders of Justice.
The Riders of Justice. I got similar things, but with the Djinn, this was like really intense with me. Do you ever have that thing when you're watching a movie and the hairs on the back of your neck stand up? Not because it's thrilling, not because you're scared, but because as you're watching it, you're going, "Oh my God, I'm watching a great movie. Like, I'm watching a movie that I will cherish for the rest of my life. This is a movie that's a fucking classic, and everything they're doing is right." And it's hard because it's hard to even review the movie because I was so excited about how good this thing was. My biggest fear, because this is a horror movie, and we'll get into that. My biggest fear was, please don't fuck up. Please don't fuck up. Please stay going. And it got to the end, and it fucking nailed it. Everything about this movie is great. The end. I guess, do you want to go through the plot synopsis?
Yeah, I'll do the rec. Okay, here's the official plot synopsis, listeners, viewers. The Djinn. The story follows a mute 12-year-old Dylan Jacobs as he discovers a mysterious book of spells. I think it's called Book of Shadows or something, inside his new apartment. Grieving the loss of his mom and feeling isolated from everyone except his dad, Dylan performs a ritual that promises to deliver his heart's desire, which is to have a voice. So he wants to summon Dylan Jacobs. He wants to summon a Djinn, or the Djinn, to put back a little bit of voice. He's mute. He wants to talk. That is his main wish. And that wish, granted possibly by the Djinn, might come back to haunt him. That is the premise of the movie. Eric Holmes, did you wait, Bruce, chime in. Eric was saying this is a masterpiece. It is effing great. It's perfect.
It's really good. It's really good. It's short. What is this? Like 80 minutes or something?
80 again, like
felt like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I wanted this thing
really
to go on
fast.
so much longer.
Okay. I'll just add a few little layers since, he's given kind of the overview and I agree with everything he says. First of all, it's surprising. You think it's just going to be this kind of cheesy, indie horror movie. But
by the way, that's fine. That if it's a cheesy,
totally fine.
Nothing wrong with that.
This is, first of all, it's really great limited storytelling. You wouldn't think this is limited storytelling, but it is. Essentially, it's mostly this boy, which we have to name the actor, the male.
Ezra Dewey. Ezra Dewey is an actor. Yeah.
I don't know how old he is, maybe 11, something like that.
13 at the most, 12, 13 at the most, maybe.
He is like 85% of the acting in this movie, and he has to do most of it silent because he's supposed to be mute. He has to do all of it silent, really. And I don't know how to say it. This is like the perfect EC comic made into a movie. This is like the perfect Tales from the Crypt made into a movie because it's got a really simple concept. It gives you the rules. It literally gives you the rules right at the beginning. It says, it doesn't even pretend to like come up with a reason like, okay, this used to be someone else's house. Here's a spooky book. Cool. I'm going to do this. Awesome. You know the rules, you set it up, but then it plays it out. And we're not going to say what happens, but the first thing that happened, the first event, I was a little confused because I thought one thing was happening, but I wasn't quite sure. And I want to hear what Eric thinks of this and Greg. But then when I was like, oh, I see what's happening, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they kept escalating that concept. And last but not least, limited storytelling. You're basically all in this apartment. They roam around that apartment with the kid and with the camera, and they use every corner and every doorway. And they even do like Polanski kind of shit where they have like a shot down a hallway we can see partially into one room and partially into another room. And they use that. It's really good.
You got to watch when you say Polanski's shit with the movie starring a kid.
Whatever. Get over yourself.
Whatever. Yeah, we love Polanski as the artist. Okay, now speaking of artists, it's co-directed and written by David Chabanier and Justin Powell. I'm sure I mispronounced David's last name. They both wrote and directed this movie. They both co-directed this movie. Props to them. Again, as Bruce was saying, it's an enclosed type of film. Well, like Wait Until Dark starring Audrey Hepburn, like Panic Room. This movie probably was made for what, Eric Holmes? Like $20,
yeah.
25, $30. Guess what? It looks like $1 million. The production design is fantastic. And we were talking about being tense, being a big stress ball in The Killing of Two Lovers. All throughout the movie, I was scared. I was scared for the boy's safety. I was tense. The pacing of this movie is perfect. It's only 82 minutes. It feels, Eric said, it felt like a 10-minute film, 10 minutes, but whether it's 10 minutes or 82 minutes, it felt like a full-fledged story. I'm going to get into the weeds because, Eric, I'm going to let you do all of the knockout praises for the Djinn. I'm going to get into the weeds with this. We previously, several months ago, we talked about how the dad in PG Psycho Gorman, PG for short, PG Psycho Gorman, he needs to have his own movie. He's an awesome character. I love Psycho Gorman. We all love Psycho Gorman so much. Bruce the most because he has all that merch. But this, Rob Brownstein plays Michael Jacobs, the father of, I guess, 13-year-old son, Dylan. And Michael Jacobs, he's a radio DJ. He has to be out at night. That's why he leaves his son in the middle of the night because he has a night shift. Michael Jacobs, that is the name of the father, one of the coolest dads in cinema history, just a loving father who listens to his son's needs. I wish there was actually a little bit more of him in this movie. That's not a complaint. There's a reason why he has to leave because he has a night job. But this was great chemistry. And yeah, Ezra Dewey is, I think, you know what? I'm going to let you, Eric, talk about singing the praises of Ezra Dewey and the rest of the movie. I'm going to yield the floor to you.
A year from now, I hope to hear the words, and the Oscar for Best Male Performance goes to Ezra Dewey. Yeah. He is so fucking fantastic in this. And like Bruce said, he's like 10, 11. So like he's not a He's not an old salt, that's for sure. He's just the way that, like, look, silent acting is I guess can be pretty tough because you don't have the exposition. You have to emote everything with, I'm not an actor, but like this, just all the sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're
I can't do this. He's just so fantastic, and I just want to hug him and tell him how great he is. But the music in it, the score is fantastic.
Yes.
The camera work, the way the camera's just flipping all over and not like in a Michael Bay sort of way, but like it kind of reminded me of what's that what's that movie, the something the night or the
It Comes at Night.
no the one where they're the guy with the glasses and the girl and they hear the aliens.
Vast of Night.
Vast of Night.
Vast of Night, right? Very good.
Yeah.
The camera work reminded me of that, just on a smaller level because they're inside of an apartment the whole time, and just the way the weirdness kind of sort of creeps in, and that, but then it hits with like an emotional punch because it's not just creepy for creepy's sake. There's stuff going in it that's personal to the characters. And that part really landed to me. And I don't think that lands if Ezra isn't as great of an actor as he is. If you get just some random 10-year-old, this movie is not half as great as it is.
I actually like Come Play. I did enjoy the movie. Bruce, I messaged you before you saw the Djinn, and I said, Bruce, I feel like this is going to be what you wanted Come Play to be. In fairness, I mean, did this hit those notes?
Yeah,
I mean, right in that? Yeah,
they are different movies, obviously, but I think to play on the idea of a young kid and a scary thing going on with a kid, I think this is so much more focused and so much more skillful and does so much with so little. Like we all said over and over again. I mean, I was thinking, we're talking about the camera movement, I was also thinking of like maybe the maze sequence in The Shining or something, and this movie could have been so jump scary. And I'm not going to say it doesn't kind of have jump scares, but it doesn't really do it in the way it's really earned when it does it. And it instead of just having like the obvious, like person looks one way, music goes down, looks the other way. I mean, there's sort of an element of that maybe a couple times, but more times than not, it's something like he slowly with us and the camera looks around a corner and he does see something there and then goes back around the corner and you're like, oh shit. So that stuff was really good. Or walks past something and kicks it. Nothing's happening, kicks it. Okay, we're good. Are we? Maybe not. That's great. That's really good tension building for a horror movie. It's like I said, it's earned.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just to jump on that real quick, I think where this one earns it is that, like a lot of jump scares, they're coming because you hear the music going, like, oh, nothing's happened for a while, and then jump scare. But this one, I think the jump scares work because you know what to expect.
Yeah, like
he's walking past that thing, it's going to grab him. It's just a matter of when. Yeah. They set up. I mean, it's limited storytelling, so you have almost perfect information, and so it's not. I mean, it's definitely a jump scare, but it's a jump scare because it plays off the dread and it plays off the suspense that it's actually building, as opposed to I don't know, something's behind the.
And he knows what to expect.
Yeah.
He is smart. We're shown that he is smart. And we also are shown the rules of the situation. So he knows, and we know he can't get out of it for a certain amount of something I'm not going to talk about. So that also makes it like he's forced into certain things that he might not do in another movie, except being a dumb character. But in this movie, he has to do them because he doesn't have a choice. That's awesome.
There's another really cool thing about this, and it's real subtle. In fact, I thought the TV screen was broken, but the candle, it's got the black in the middle.
Yeah,
and it's like there's something, but then that actually plays a part in it. It's like a visual representation. So like when the candle's no longer black in the middle, it's just a normal candle. Like it means something now.
Yeah.
And the way they set that up and that whole last kind of standoff sort of thing. And it's just that candle there. And all he's got to do is get the candle. It's just right there. Easiest thing in the world, but he can't do it. And it's not, it's not that you can't do it in a contrived way. It all makes sense with how everything's set up. Is so good. Oh my God, this movie's so good.
I want to
watch it again.
I'm going to give, listeners, I'm going to give a couple of cheap comparisons, like as far as a gumbo pot. If you like the emotion, the resonance of, say, The Sixth Sense, mix it in with, we mentioned Polanski, like a Repulsion, or I love Audrey Hepburn, that Audrey Hepburn film, Wait Until Dark, where everything's closed and you're tense. You just mash them together and you get, obviously, like Bruce was saying, completely different movies. You get, with this original concept, you get The Djinn. My only point of frustration, not against this movie, is it hits select theaters and anywhere you rent movies on Friday, May 14th. My only frustration is I want everyone to see The Djinn. I don't want this movie to be ignored. It will be a bone of contention if people do not see The Djinn. And also another thing that really frustrates me is they have no money to make this film. Why can't more movies that have millions and millions of dollars be as effective as this movie? These two filmmakers, they're going to be hired. If anyone has a brain in the studio system, they're going to be hired to do a tentpole movie because they know pacing, they know editing, they know scares. Most importantly, they know how to add heart into this genre film. Bruce, you were talking about the jump scares, and Eric, you were talking about how they're layered into the narrative. Yeah, some jump scares are cheap because the movies themselves are cheap, and that's fine. We enjoy that. This movie's on an entirely different level. Excellent. Pretty much another masterpiece for me with The Djinn. Eric, you were gonna say.
I went in after watching the movie. I couldn't watch the movie again, but I wanted to at least watch the trailer to kind of refresh myself on some of the gloriousness I saw. Don't watch the trailer.
Yeah.
Watch the movie first, and then if you want to go back to the trailer, do that. The trailer spoils so much, which I guess doesn't really matter because this movie is so strong and in that how everything builds and the suspense but yeah, there's
not knowing how the Djinn is going to manifest.
Yeah.
Is really key to enjoying this, because I went in basically just knowing nothing. The Djinn, okay, it's a genie or something, that's all I know. Whatever, you know what I mean? So that is the way to go into this, because how it manifests and discovering the rules and what that's all about is awesome.
I agree with that. I'm just saying with the trailer, first of all, the trailer makes this movie look a lot worse than it actually is, and it gives away so much. But even with that, like if you already saw the trailer, just know that this movie's so much better than that trailer lets on. And even if it gives it away, I think this movie is strong enough that it doesn't, it's not leaning on the first time viewing or like a big twist or anything. It's just kind of like living in it and kind of just letting the movie pull you in and pull you in and pull you in. And then you get the hair standing up back up on the back of your neck, not because you're scared, but because you're like me and you're like, this movie is so fucking awesome. Jesus Christ, I can't believe I'm watching this.
Well, final thing on this is The Killing of Two Lovers. We mentioned about the memorable ending and a specific act within the third act, which really got to us. Eric Holmes, you were talking the hairs standing on the back of your neck, and Bruce Purkey, I want to get your guys' thoughts on the ending without giving too much away about the Djinn. Did it knock the ending out of the park? My take on it is holy bleep and bleep. It went there, and yes. So
there's a moment that you'll probably be waiting for the entire movie that I didn't cry.
Yeah.
But god damn, I wanted to so bad. Like that ending just hit me so emotionally, and the way the kid pulls it off. It just I was heartbroken, and I just want to hug him even more.
Bruce, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean it's the perfect ending for this movie, and hopefully they don't make sequels, because it's a perfect capsule. It's just so smart. This is made by people who, I don't know if they love horror movies. It doesn't have to be a horror movie, obviously, but it is a horror movie. But these are people that know how to write, and they have the conviction to follow it all the way through to the end, because this could have ended and still been really good a couple seconds before it ends. But by ending it the way it did, by ending it the way it did, it had to end it that way. Once it ends the way it does, if you're on board, which you should be, your only answer can be like, yes, that's the only way it could end. That's the only way this could end. It's the perfect ending. I mean, there is not a better way to do this. It's not. That's not even an opinion. That is just a fact.
that is just a fact. And look, Eric Holmes.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong, Eric?
No, you're absolutely right.
This is how much.
In fact, if you're listening and you watch the movie and you don't think it's a perfect ending, you're wrong.
You are wrong.
You're wrong. And
you're just simply wrong.
Final capper Eric Holmes was laid down the gauntlet saying this movie is a masterpiece. And to Bruce's point, what Bruce has just said, he said if the movie ended a couple of beats before the actual ending, that would completely work as well. So you basically have two.
It would be good, but it wouldn't be as good.
Okay. Wow. Yes. And you know what? Bruce Purkey, regarding sequels to The Djinn, I definitely am pushing back on that, because those two filmmakers, I want them to do The Djinn.
Make something else really cool. Djinn
goes spiraling. I don't know.
No.
Do
Djinn
10
in space.
Yeah, because we had this movie is so
Djinn
much
in
of
the
a
hood.
masterpiece.
Let's just go all the way with this thing.
Give us 10 more Djinns, guys. You guys
Gin
deserve
and
that.
tonic.
Gin and tonic, more sequels, because you guys filmmakers, we love this film so much that you guys deserve those beautiful homes in Malibu, Century City, maybe on the East Coast. Do whatever you want. This movie stands alone. We love The Djinn, and it's Eric's, I guess, number one with the bullet this week. So we're done.
So Psycho Gorman, and I think this one tops it. And it's hard to compare the two because they're such different movies. It's like Psycho Gorman just takes that silly gore horror, and it's just like the perfect version of this. And The Djinn takes that kind of real serious, thought-provoking horror, if you want to call it that. People call it elevated horror, which I think is a terrible term, but they're both great versions of what they're trying to do.
All right. You should not have said it's a little bit better than PG Psycho Gorman, because you just got a dead eye Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster in the middle of gunfight at OK Corral look from Bruce Purkey, just staring you down at that assertion. How dare you, in front of Bruce Purkey, say that about PG Psycho Gorman, PG for short. Now, Bruce Purkey, how are we going to top these first two masterpieces? And your masterpieces, what? Riders of Justice? What is this? What kind of title is that? Well,
it is the worst. It is the worst title of the three. I will admit that.
Is this a fantasy epic or something? Is it a biker film? You know what? I've been blabbing. Can you just?
Well, I don't know. I don't have the notes in front of me, so you might have to do the synopsis. But I'll say, first of all, I will say, Riders of Justice is not the greatest title, and the poster makes it look like something that it is not. The poster just looks like it's going to be Liam Neeson badass, but instead it's Mads Mikkelsen, which I'm okay with that. I would go with that, but it's not what this is. So give them the synopsis if it doesn't spoil things.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to actually talk about Riders of Justice, to give it a simple plot synopsis as all of, and this is what makes it, in my opinion, also pretty much a masterpiece, because all three of us, we've seen our share of action films, and we love Mads Mikkelsen. But guess what? You know what? I'm gonna lay down the gauntlet as well. I'm gonna say gauntlet 5 million times this episode. Out of all of us three, Bruce, I don't think you're going to argue with me. As far as action movies, I think the big expert among us three is Eric Holmes, and I dare him to actually name even 10 or 20 films that have as innovative as a plot for an action film, action thriller, as Riders of Justice. Such a very intriguing. Oh, Bruce, you're saying?
I debate if it's even an action movie, honestly.
That's true. There's
like,
some moments. It's
kind of like calling Die Hard a Christmas movie. Yeah.
You could call this a Christmas movie. This is a Christmas movie, right?
Yeah,
well, anyways, Matt,
it's got action in it. But yeah, this is not a full-on action movie. This is, we'll get into this. Is something else.
This is a whole thing.
This is a whole. Well, okay, so let's just just peel that one onion. Marcus, He's a military man. He's played by Mads Mikkelsen. He is basically never home. He's always out in the field. And ultimately, he has to go home. He has to leave his post and come home after the tragic passing of his wife in a train accident. He is now in charge of parenting their teenage daughter, Matilde. And that's it. That is the story. Marcus is trying to take care of his teenage daughter. They're obviously traumatized by the mother's passing in the train accident. The daughter was in the train as well, so there's just double trauma on her part. She wants some kind of crisis counseling therapy. Marcus, military man, stoic. He's all about doing the job. He is tough as can be. He is bottling his emotions regarding his wife's loss. He is of no help to the daughter whatsoever. He is a caring and loving father, but he sure does not show it. Enter three men, and I don't know, three men who are probably, they're just, I was gonna say maybe I say this affectionately, they're like the Three Stooges without all the pranks. They're just different guys. They're statisticians, they're theorists. One of them is specialized in face recognition. One of these men, he was actually on the train, and he believes that the train accident was not an accident. It was actually a conspiracy, an operation masterminded by a crime boss. So once he brings that theory to Marcus, Marcus is intrigued, and he teams up with these three men who help him via different information in actually taking down the men who are supposedly responsible for this tragedy. So first off, Bruce Purkey, I tried my best with the plot synopsis.
Yeah.
What stood out for you regarding Riders of Justice?
This is such a hard movie to be able to sell to people and to describe the. You talked, I think earlier said gumbo. This is a gumbo movie. This movie, I guess what I like about it most is it always was surprising me. It is. I think some people will not like it because they will say it's tonally all over the place, which it kind of is, but somehow it still works because of that. Because there's a lot of humor in this. There's some straight bone crunching action. Mads Mikkelsen will give you some of what you want, but not in the way you maybe want it. And this movie is not afraid to just do these weird, strange detours. Like there's a sequence. So early on in this grouping of these three men and Mads is trying to hide from his daughter what's going on. So there's one point where where the three men are walking around, I forget what they says, but somehow they have to come up with a story of why those men are there. And they say, oh, we're here to I'm a counselor or whatever he says. And he says, I'm here to talk to your father and make sure that he's getting his counseling, some version of that. So basically she believes that he's a counselor, and you're like, okay, that's their cover story. And then they go on to have a sequence where she gets counseled by him, and you watch it. And it's like, why is the scene here? I don't know, but I love it. It's so weird. And this movie is full of things like that. There's scenes where they're going off to do an action, and somebody gets mad enough that they end up out of the car, and off they go to do the action. And then later on, they'll come by and oh yeah, we got to pick him up. Little things like that are just so strange. And ultimately, it's a little bit of the butterfly effect. Like you get to watch this really interesting chain of events that, it's like you do this one little thing and it leads to this other little thing, it leads to this other little thing. And I think there's some interesting questions going on here about chance, science, determinism, God. I mean, you can read it in a bunch of different ways, but I think this has a lot going on in it, and it's fun all the way. To me, it was. Now, your turn. What do you think?
Eric, before we get to you, I'm going to let you wrap it up. I just think this movie's perfect as well. I don't even think near perfect, just perfect. It's close to 2 hours. These days at my age and my patience, I don't like anything. It's hard for me to like movies that are over 90 minutes. This movie's close to 2 hours. I wish that I was fine. I was fine with the length. Also, Bruce, to your point, it's a Mads Mikkelsen movie, but everyone pretty much who is on Mads's character's side, that whole extended family, each of them get their moments to shine, and it diverges from the actual story, but you want to be there. It doesn't detract from anything. It actually adds to it, which is a rare thing. So if you want a fully fleshed story, this works. Riders of Justice works as an action thriller. It works as a comedy. It works as a fully fleshed narrative that continues to surprise you all the way up to the end. So high recommendation for me for Riders of Justice. Eric Holmes, your thoughts?
I think Bruce hit the nail on the head when he said butterfly effect, because that's really the theme of this entire movie. And I mentioned to Bruce in the chat, this reminded me a lot of Tenet, and that where Tenet, at least to me, it's not so much about the plot or the characters, it's about it's about what they represent. And in Tenet's case, it's bunch of science shit, and in this it's the plot's kind of all over the place, but that's kind of the point, because it's about the butterfly effect. It's a girl wants a bike, but she wants a blue one. Well, that sets off a whole weird chain of events that brings these two people together, which set off this weird event, and it just keeps getting more and more insane. And you could argue that the plot's kind of a mess, but that's that again goes in with the theme, because it's about chaos. The butterfly effect in essence is about chaos, and just how this thing that's happening right now, it happened because of these chain of events that started here. And even when the characters tells another one, it's like it's meaningless. Like you can go back all the way to the Big Bang, and you're gonna waste your time. Just live and enjoy it, or experience it, or do whatever. And again, as you guys mentioned, this is a hard one to describe, but that's because it's not really about the plot. It's about the themes and the wonderful characters they have in it, just kind of make that a little easier to swallow. But I think if you try too hard to figure out the plot, I think you're kind of missing the point, I would say.
I think this lives in that weird land. Like you can get the plot, and it pulls you forward, and it's interesting enough on its own, but it's kind of like Big Lebowski, where there's a plot there too.
Yeah.
But ultimately you just want to kind of sit there and experience these interesting scenes and interactions that occur. And as time goes on, you start to like cherish those. I'm not saying this will get quite that status, but this could have a similar kind of cult love by people. I also wanted to mention, you were talking about the characters and loving them and stuff. And I really like, this usually only happens in a long form television series, but it's rare that a movie does this, where it'll introduce a new character as just a side character that you think's never going to come back, and they end up staying and actually becoming integral to the story. And that happens multiple times in this movie. So it's almost like this rolling ball that just keeps collecting characters,
And they're all awesome.
This is okay. I'm going to go way. This is going to go way nerdy. This is the Katamari Damacy of movies. Look it up.
Is that the video game?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Took a second, but I got there.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of those things, if you like, kind of like what Eric is saying, if you kind of let the plot is kind of just a loose framework to get from one place to another, but really it's just going to be all these interesting and weird interactions that occur, and each character gets their moment in the sunlight. And if you like Mads, there's a couple moments that are great. There's a moment where Mads is walking away from a door, and he stops and turns around. You're like, oh shit, this is Mads, and he does what you think he's going to do, and it's awesome. So there's a few of those moments.
Then there's and another cool thing about this one is it's just reveal after reveal after reveal. Like there's, and the part you're talking about, well, there's a part very shortly after that changes things, and then there's a part shortly after that also like it's just a series of but again, that's all that's fun, but that's not I don't think that's the overlying point. And I think as much of a air quote mess as the plot is, I think it works because the theme is so focused. Like everything kind of connects in that way.
And the final shot or sequence over the closing credits.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So perfect.
Very perfect.
Once again, all three of these movies, perfect endings.
Perfect endings. I'm going to draw a slender, tenuous thread, which probably is not going to weave all three together, but I am going to, in my inimitable, pretentious way, try to connect them. There won't be a connective tissue, but I just really recently noticed each of these movies are completely different from one of each other, but each movie deals with families. There's trauma. There are discussions or just slightly some very blatant, some little interwoven regarding what it means to be a parent and loving, and you can actually watch all three of these movies and get those kind of weed packing elements of just connecting them, because if you see all of these movies back to back to back, you're going to have a really wonderful day. That's all I'm going to say. But I do see a little bit of a slight thread that you can kind of connect all of these three. If you love movies about parents, sons, daughters, what it means to be in this world within that family unit, each of these movies in their own right tackle those issues. So
I would watch them in the order that we talked about them too.
Well, so the first one I saw was Killing of Two Lovers. And I think I told you guys after I saw it, it was like I was gonna watch. I think I was gonna watch the Djinn or the right. That is a terrible title, Riders of the Justice. But
Dolph Lundgren and
of all three of these movies, I'll let the Mitch Hedberg thing go. Change the title of Riders of Justice to anything else. But I watched Killing of Two Lovers, and I was gonna watch the Riders of Justice next. And I was like, I can't do that to that. That's not fair. It's not fair to watch another movie, right? Because Killing of Two Lovers was so good. Had I known, and then I saw Riders of Justice, I'm like, there's no way I can watch the Djinn right after this. It's just, had I known that all three of these movies were going to be as fantastic as they were, to Greg's point, this is a great triple feature. And they're all coming out, I believe, on the same day. So fuck, if you want to just one right after the other, go for it. Because they're different flavors, but they're all three fantastic, and they all have it's the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, right?
You might disagree, but I can't imagine you're going to not find at least one of these three that you'll really like.
Yeah,
at least one of them.
Yeah, because all three of them, I mean, they're all different genres, but they're all the best version, the best version of the genre that they're tackling. Like, I cannot, other than the name of Riders of Justice, I cannot, in the Mitch Hedberg thing, I cannot think of one way to improve any one of these movies.
Yeah. Well, and look, these three movies are so monumental and awesome. Actually, we're doing some quarterback play calling right now. We usually do weekly recommendations just because we were really high strong on all of these movies. The recommendations, we're going to throw them for next week, because right now on our new segment, we have a little added segment right now with our, I guess, mutual all recommendations, thanks to Angie Clark and Entertain Mart and that connection. We are going to talk about the Elia Kazan film, Wild River. And when we come back, we're going to close out with Bruce Purkey's What's in the Box selection. So here is our chat with the lovely Angie Clark as she talks about Elia Kazan's Wild River. Hey, everyone, we're back with another week of Find Your Film. This one is really special because we have one of our close friends and Cinematics group members with us, Angie Clark. Angie, welcome to the show.
Oh, so glad to be here.
Yes, Angie has been an OG supporter of Cinematics since its inception, and since then she's actually, I'm such a crypto addict. I'm just saying, basically, Find Your Film was the fork on the blockchain, on the Cinematics blockchain. And Bruce, stop looking at me like that, you son of a. Bruce is giving me a very side look, and it's well intentioned because Bruce.
Come on, Greg, you're the spoon. You're not the fork on the blockchain.
I'm not the fork. I'm just a little teaspoon. But either way, Angie Clark has been a supporter of both our podcast, Cinematics, and Find Your Film. My first question is going to be a hard one for Angie. Angie, what's the difference between the two podcasts? You listen to Find Your Film and Cinematics on your walks with your dog. Even though there's bobcats around, you still listen to our podcast. What's the main difference between the two shows?
Well, the three of you, I don't know, y'all just have different opinions, and I love all of your different takes on movies. And then you and Anderson, y'all have a different relationship of sharing movies. But they're both good. So
Yes.
I love them. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing. This week, there's a huge reason why you're with us. Eric Holmes, can you talk about your connection with Angie Clark and Entertain Mart? What's going on? Why the heck is Angie Clark on our episode?
Well, first of all, she's on because she's a great person and she's going to talk to us about a lovely movie that she recommended. But we did the Entertain Mart gift card giveaway, and Angie's one of the people that won. And we've done this a couple times before and probably do it a couple more times later on. Mostly, it's just a fun way to bring people onto the show and, like Angie said, get differing opinions. But more importantly, I'm just curious what you got at Entertain Mart, and then we get to talk about it.
I know, and I know you want to know how easy it was. You really have to know what movie you're looking for. And you just go to the Entertain Mart website and look for your movie, and you have to pick one that says in store, and then you search and you have to make sure it's the Colorado Springs store. So it takes a little while, but once you get the movie that you want, you call them and they say, yeah, we have it. I had the video in just a couple of days, and then they gave me a free shipping, so I'm going to order more. I've already got my eye on a few things, so it was great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
For years, I think maybe about a decade ago, I saw this movie called Raintree County. It's a Civil War drama starring Elizabeth Taylor and Monty Clift, Montgomery Clift. And I guess maybe a decade ago, Montgomery Clift at that time became my favorite actor because the way he approached how he was a different leading man. Basically, he wasn't a Dean. He didn't have the sensitivity and rebelliousness of Dean. He didn't have the animal magnetism and charisma and brute force of, say, a Marlon Brando. I could relate to him. He was the oftentimes ineffectual, very hesitant, introspective male lead. And for a while, he was actually quite good looking. I'm not saying I was quite good looking. I was talking about the ineffectual part. And for years, I'd wanted to see the movie that you chose for your Entertain Mart purchase after watching Raintree County. But for years, this movie was actually hard to find. Angie Clark, can you tell our listeners what your Entertain Mart choice was and why did you pick it?
It was Wild River with Montgomery Clift and Lee Remick. I chose it because I heard Bruce Dern being interviewed on the Movies That Made Me podcast. And Bruce Dern was so entertaining. He just talked. He's got so much history and he knows so many actors. But he said this was his first movie and he was uncredited, but he just really appreciated working for Kazan, or he called him Gadge. And so I just picked this movie. And then he talked about Lee Remick and how she was one of his favorite actresses, actually one of the nicest actresses. So I was lucky to find it and really enjoyed it. So it sort of led me down some more rabbit trails. It's kind of like your director's focus does, because then I started watching more Kazan movies and Lee Remick movies. And one of my favorite Kazan movies after this was A Face in the Crowd with Lee Remick. And I think that was her first one. And a whole different Andy Griffith on that movie. But yeah, I don't know. It just, you guys open up so many movies and just opened my eyes. But yeah, Bruce Dern was really interesting interview. So that's how I chose it.
Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but years ago, I interviewed Andy Griffith for A Face in the Crowd with the Warner Home Video DVD release. And, I also interviewed Tony Franciosa, who's a big actor in A Face in the Crowd. I do agree with you, Angie Clark, that A Face in the Crowd is a seminal Elia Kazan release. I'm gonna out you right now, though. Bruce and Eric Holmes, you don't know this, over messages on Facebook. Angie Clark, On the Waterfront, controversial opinion. What did you think of On the Waterfront, Angie Clark, before we get to Wild River? Sorry.
I don't remember what I said.
I know you didn't like it as much as everyone else does. Which
I didn't. Yeah.
It just didn't work for you, right?
Right. He just didn't. Brando's, I don't know. I just didn't like him in that for some reason.
Yeah. I love those kind of, Eric, don't you love those kind of divergent opinions? It's cool, right? That's the flavor of life.
I don't know that that's controversial, though. Because Marlon Brando is one of those actors, like everyone knows him as a great actor, but he's also kind of has a reputation for being a dickhead or hard to work with. So the fact that someone doesn't like it, like me, like Keanu Reeves, for example, he's not a great actor, but he's got a good personality. And that always comes through in everything he does, whether he's doing it on purpose or not. And I think probably the opposite happens for someone like Marlon Brando. Like if you're a shithead, maybe that comes out, and certain people don't, as great of an actor as you can be, maybe your inner asshole comes out and maybe turns some people off. And that can be helpful if that's the character you're playing. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of if I've seen On the Waterfront. I know I've seen pieces of it, but I don't know that I've seen it from front to back.
Wow.
But is that the Stella one, or am I thinking of something else?
No, that's a streetcar named Desire. On the Waterfront, when he talks about he could have been a contender when he's in the back of the car with
Carl Malden.
And Carl Malden's his brother, is the priest and everything like that. Bruce Purkey, before we get to Wild River, Angie Clark's pick. Controversial, or you think On the Waterfront? Can you see how some people might not like that movie?
Yeah, I mean, I have a similar feeling about East of Eden. East of Eden doesn't work for me at all. So, and I think that's just one of those. I think that era of movie with the whole, method acting and all that kind of stuff that they're doing, and that whole crew, sometimes it comes across as overheated, and for me, it doesn't quite work. Sometimes it works really well, but yeah, I can see how some of those don't necessarily age so well.
So Angie, for that,
I guess at the time,
yeah,
maybe we would have appreciated it more, but now it's,
it didn't connect with you. Brando's performance didn't connect with you.
No, but
Cool.
you know what? He reminds me a lot of Tom Hardy.
I could see that.
I don't know if Tom Hardy would remake some of his movies or play him in a biography or something.
Do him right. Just so you should tell it to the studios. You guys need to make these classic movies the right way and put Tom Hardy in them. Just remake those.
Right.
Those terrible old versions that people like.
Screw the original. Put more Brando into Brando.
On the schmotter front. Come on now. Let's get
personally, I love different opinions, so we can actually round out a good conversation regarding Elie Kazan's On the Waterfront. Now, it's so interesting, Bruce, that you mentioned East of Eden not connecting with you, even though that movie is highly praised. We're going to get to that East of Eden reference in a second. Wild River was released in 1960, directed by Elie Kazan. The writers are Paul Osborne, William Bradford Hewell, and one more credit, which I can't click right now because I don't want to. Centers on a TVA bureaucrat played by Monty Clift. He plays this guy named Chuck Glover. He comes to this, what is it, a small town, but it's pretty much a farming community. There's some shanties, there's some homes all along this river. This river is going to essentially it has destroyed homes within the area. There are a couple of stragglers left who will not leave. That person who will not leave is Ella Garth, played by Jo Van Fleet. Jo Van Fleet received an Oscar for her work in East of Eden, playing the mother of James Dean, and she is Ella Garth, a grandmother, an elderly woman who knows the inevitable will come. The river is going to get her and her home, and maybe even the people who work on her land. She does not care. She will stay till the bitter end, even with the dam being built and the inevitable has to come. She must leave the river and find a new home away from all the waters. Now, Monty Clift, as Chuck, that's the whole movie. He tries to get her out of that river area home. Lee Remick, Angie Clark was mentioning Lee Remick. Lee Remick is Carol, and Carol is the granddaughter of Ella. Carol and Chuck ultimately have a interesting bond that serves as pretty much sort of the spine of Wild River. It's set in the South. There are moments where Monty Clift, as Chuck, he's of course a little bit liberal-minded. He's open-minded, and he's all about hiring people for the right amount of dollar. Doesn't matter what color of your skin. He's a fair man, but the problem is some people within this environment do not agree with his POV. That is the push and pull of Wild River. Of course, there is the impending waters and floods to come. Angie Clark, you purchased this movie at Entertainment Mart. You ordered it. They sent it to you. Was this a right purchase for you?
Oh, definitely. Yes. Yeah, I love this movie. It's really historical, and it made me look up the Tennessee Valley Authority. I knew nothing about them. I didn't know why, what was going on. So this area would flood a lot. And so they were building these dams to help with controlling the flooding, and also to provide electricity to the residents. And apparently this area, 30% of the population had malaria because of all the flooding, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, I mean, so it was historical. It opened my eyes to a whole different part of our country that I didn't know about. And then, you know, he's trying to hire people to clear the trees, and there aren't enough white men to do it. And so he wants to hire some of the African-American men and pay them the same wage. And of course, the locals don't like that. And they say, if you hire him, the other guys will quit. And he can't understand their point of view. So he pushes through, and he gets, of course, some pushback from the locals. And but then there's a love story in it. I don't know, it wasn't a blockbuster movie. It was slow, but it had a good message and kind of opens our eyes to things that, I mean, we don't experience today. I mean, we've come a long way, probably still not where we need to be, but I just can't believe that people treated each other like that, but I guess they did. Anyway.
Yeah. When a lot of people mention, when a lot of cinephiles mention the works of Montgomery Clift, they use movies like The Heiress or When He Was Young, and also The Heiress, A Place in the Sun, Red River. Wild River is never mentioned, even though, like you said, it has Elie Kazan as a director, and it has some really, like Lee Remick and the aforementioned Joe Van Fleet. What did you think of Clift's performance in this film, Angie? Did it stand out for you? Did it connect with you, or were you on it?
I didn't think he wasn't very charismatic in this. I didn't think he was really into the role, but I mean, he pulled it off, but I didn't really believe him that well about, I don't know.
Yeah, you didn't believe him. You know what? I'll be honest with you. He is, for a while, he was my favorite actor. I'm going to get to my thoughts on him, which will probably run, not counter, actually parallel to your thoughts on Cliff. But first, the Holmes truth, Eric Holmes. Angie Clark, she weighed down on a Wild River. She liked it, didn't love it, thought Cliff did a decent job.
Yeah.
What did you think? Did anything
Well,
stand out?
first of all,
yeah.
Angie didn't love Montgomery Clift. Booted. No, just kidding.
No, I love him. I just, in this particular role,
I agree.
I just couldn't see him and the girl together.
Oh yeah, I would say the love story didn't really click with me. It seemed like it didn't need to be there. There was enough interesting stuff going on that they could have leaned on that. They could have done away with the love story and leaned more on the like Angie said, the history and the like all the TVA. I don't know, the political, legal stuff going on. That's probably my inner courtroom drama fan coming out. I loved Montgomery Clift mostly because so I checked his IMDb afterwards, and the only thing I've seen that he was in was Judgment at Nuremberg, and I don't remember who he was in that. Granted, that's a long ass movie, so he's probably like the main character. I just didn't notice. The only person I recognize in that is William Shatner, because it's, hey, Captain Kirk's playing not Captain Kirk. This is neat, but Montgomery Clift, he has a kind of a weird personality, and I didn't hate it at all. I loved it, but it wasn't at all what I was expecting. I kept thinking of Casey Affleck, because like Casey Affleck kind of only Casey Affleck acts like Casey Affleck, or and it's not he just had a weird kind of timbre to him, I guess. The story was really cool, really interesting. I don't know what's spoiler and what's not, but there's a part where he's talking to the black people working in that little island they're trying to get the old lady off of, and they're like, we can get you work, and then they take them with them, show them the job they'll be doing, where they'll be living. They're like, hey, this is nice.
Yeah, they're switching the lights on, off and on.
The old lady's looking at them as they're leaving, like, how could you? I'm like, I mean, it kind of coming off as a slave owner, so I mean, I can't feel too sorry for you. This had a bunch of really weird dynamics to it, especially watching it today. I wonder what this movie was like, how I would have thought about this movie when it came out, because a bunch of stuff really stood out to me is people doing horrible things, but maybe that's, at least at the time this movie set in, apparently that's just the way people were. That's not saying it's right by any stretch of the imagination, but that, and whenever you get a character like Montgomery Clift's, a character like his. Older movies, when you have people in a very racist world, and then there's the one white guy that's not, I don't, and I didn't grow up in that time, so I don't know, but I wonder how accurate it is that there was the one that was like, I'm the non-racist one, and it's weird that you guys are racist. I'm like, is it though? Because you live there. Like that, not saying that you need to think it's right, but you should at least be. I'm not buying that he's floored by the fact that there's racism there.
Yes.
I think that he would be well aware that that exists.
It seemed like Kazan liked to make movies about political, social issues, and this was one that apparently he picked for that.
Yeah, that'd be like setting a movie now, and then there's one person who's like, "Wait, there's a pandemic? How does that work?" I'm like, dude, you're not alive right now?
Right.
Bruce, your thoughts on this movie?
Really similar. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the historical aspects a lot. I thought Lee Remick, I've only seen Lee Remick in some later roles. Well, that's not true, but I most memorably think of her from like The Omen. So seeing her as a really young actress in here, I thought she was kind of she really stood out to me in this movie. I thought she was really, I don't know, magnetic. She was really great. And as far as the whole racism thing, I think it's pretty explicit, like, I mean, I think the kind of the metaphor, like you've got this old lady with her whole group of not quite slaves, but almost living on an island by themselves, refusing to leave, refusing to change. It's kind of that, it's the last bastion of the old South. And it's trying to stand up, in the face of a sure demise, I guess you'd say. So I thought all of that was kind of interesting and pretty well done. Of course, Bruce Dern, as we talked about, he stuck out. I also noted, I was like partway through, I think I even messaged Angie. I was like partway through, and I was like, dang, that guy looks like James Earl Jones. Dang, that guy sounds like James Earl Jones. And I was like, oh, it's James Earl Jones' dad. Okay, thanks. Now I know. And I don't know what you guys think as far as like connections and things to think about. I don't know for sure, but I think John Boorman had to have seen this movie. He had to have thought about this movie a little bit when he was doing Deliverance, because
possibly,
even though the actual themes are different, first of all, it takes place within, 100 miles of where Deliverance takes place. They're both about an area of old school stuff, impending flooding. They both involve flooding like of a graveyard at some point, or near flooding of a graveyard. And there's a shot in here that really stuck out to me because I love Deliverance. There's a shot where Montgomery Clift's at a gas station, and he's sitting there, and the kind of racist dude comes up to not so subtly threaten him, and he leans in and he looks in the window while he's in the car, and he's talking to him and kind of smiling, but he's also kind of threatening him. And it's almost a shot for shot recreation of that in Deliverance, when James Dickey, the author of Deliverance, does that to the guys at the very end of Deliverance. He leans in, he goes like, you guys aren't going to come around here no more, right? He has this whole little scene. So a lot of little things like that, which I think are echoes, this idea of the South, tradition versus progress, all that kind of stuff is really interesting. And I love, one last thing is, I love the sense of place. Like, you have a really strong sense of this place. That little house, it's across the river from the island. That little road that leads down to the ferry, the ferry. Like, you have this feeling of that you really know where this is happening. And that's really strong too. So I think for people who like older movies that are interested in something they may not have come across, this could be a really good find for some people.
Speaking of finds, a huge find for Wild River is the performance of Jo Van Fleet. Again, I mentioned her role as Ella Garth. She has a monologue when Montgomery Clift's character Chuck tries to talk to her about leaving her land, and she has this really great monologue about buying her worker's dog. I forgot the name of the dog, but she makes some kind of analogy with that, and it's just a real showy monologue. Some people may be on board with that, or may jump off board saying it's too showy, but I love the showiness of Jo Van Fleet's performance. She really stands out in this movie for me. Regarding Angie Clark's assertion that Montgomery Clift, he really wasn't, it's not one of his best roles. I agree. It's a role that he underplays, and he doesn't seem too invested in the role. Maybe Chuck himself wasn't too. Maybe he's trying to, you could see the wheels churning in his performance, but credit to his performance, because ultimately the movie, though it's headlined by Montgomery Clift, he actually yields the floor to what Bruce was saying. He yields the floor to Lee Remick's performance. He yields the floor to Jo Van Fleet's performance. Both of them have the long, showy monologues, exposition-laden moments in Wild River. So if you want to see Lee Remick and Joe Van Fleet act their respective butts off, then Wild River is a huge, huge recommendation. For me, it is it was released in 1960. So if you are a cinephile and you are attuned to movies of that era, Wild River is one of those movies that is a gem to unearth, in my opinion. A couple of really interesting things about Joe Van Fleet. After watching this movie, I really want to hunt down a lot more of her movies. Maybe I might want to see East of Eden again. I want to actually check out on Amazon Prime Video. They have a TV version of Cinderella, which probably, I don't know if it's any good or not, but I'll check it out. She also has a small role or a co-starring role in the Peter Sellers, Lee Taylor Young film, I Love You, Alice B. Toklas. Never seen that. And Jo Van Fleet, she has an interest. There's a lot of legendary stuff. Talks about Jo Van Fleet. She was very close to Elie Kazan. They were collaborators. He directed her in a couple of productions in the early 50s. So she actually was born in California, raised in California, ultimately moved to New York and stayed in the Upper West Side, lived in the Upper West Side with her husband and her child. One of the legendary stories regarding Jo Van Fleet is someone at the grocery store asked her, so I don't know if it's true or not, but this is reported. Someone asked her for identification, and she took out her purse, she unzipped it, and she pulled out her Oscar for identification. That was an amazing thing.
Oh my goodness.
That's a flex right there.
Yeah, very cool. Another, yeah.
I was gonna say that's like Alec Baldwin and Glenn Ross. Fuck you. That's my name.
That's my name. Also, this is not as encouraging as far as that factoid. It is not as funny, but Albert Salmi, great character actor. He plays Hank Bailey. Hank Bailey is the resident bully of the town, the one who bullies Chuck Glover, again played by Clift, all throughout the movie. He is the main villain. In real life, I was looking up stuff on him. I'm sure we've all seen Albert Salmi before. He died early at 63. He was just 63, a very young individual. And I wonder, was it cancer, heart attack? What happened to him? What happened to him was the reason why he died in 63. Murder, suicide with his wife. He killed his wife, then killed himself. His two daughters, years later would say they forgave their father because obviously they love both their parents. So that is a tragic ending to Albert Salmi. That said, Albert Salmi in this movie, he's very, very good. A lot of really good performances in this movie. Again, Montgomery Clift, he always expressed his love of theater over movies. And to Angie Clark's assertion regarding his performance, not one of his best, but maybe he just seemed distracted in this role. It did not, in my opinion, detract from the overall efficacy of this wonderful movie, Wild River. Angie Clark, a couple more thoughts on Wild River before we go?
No, but thank you, Eric Holmes, for the gift card and opening my eyes to a new movie. I appreciate you guys so much.
Oh, appreciate you too, Angie. Before we go, do you have it right off the top of your head? Can you name one of your all-time favorite movies? And what is it about this movie that really speaks to you, that still speaks to you today?
Oh, goodness.
It can be anything.
Anything.
It could be Gremlins. It could be
Gremlins too.
You know what? Seriously, I was looking up Gremlins today. I was going to see if I could get that on, and they had it at Entertain Mart, so that was cool.
Well, I actually have a copy I could send to you.
Okay.
I have like 300 of them.
That was so fun. I would never have seen that had you not recommended it. I loved it. It was such a delight. But all-time favorite movie. I look at movies, if I can watch them over and over again, and they still make me laugh or something. But I know Anderson Cowan got onto me because this was one of my favorite movies. Pretty Woman. I know.
Great movie. Gary Marshall.
It's just a good story, good feel-good story, and I don't know. That's one of my favorites. Maybe not my favorite, but anyway.
I think that Pretty Woman. I haven't seen that since it came out, probably on like VHS or whatever. But doesn't they have like Go West song? Is that where that came from?
I'm cutting this. Very good, Eric.
He cut me last time. You didn't get to hear me sing last time. Get to hear me sing.
I'm cutting you guys off whenever there's anything musical. Angie, the reason why, because music licensing. This whole conversation's cut off.
Let me rephrase that. Did they do that song? It plays copyright music here.
Of course, Richard Gere's one of my favorite actors, so that's another reason I liked it. So.
I should also mention to the listeners, since you did cut me singing King of Wishful Thinking, even though you couldn't hear it, I nailed it. Just so you know.
Nailed it. And since Richard Gere is one of your favorite actors, I don't know if earlier with I think Chad Wilfong, Was it with Chad? No, it wasn't with Chad. No, it was with, who did we speak with? I'm blanking. Days of Heaven. Who did we talk to?
Oh yeah, I watched that movie after y'all talked about it. I
Okay,
haven't
so
seen
did you
it.
end up?
I
oh, he's
did.
gonna
I
kill us.
liked it. Yeah.
Who do we talk to? What do we talk to?
It was some guy who makes movies. I'm sorry.
He's so good. He's so good.
Balls.
He's an
I'm gonna-
artist. Why
Bruce,
are
Eric,
you
you had
testing
one
our lack
job.
of
You had-
brains?
What? Which one?
This was not it.
That was not it. Okay, but so Angie, you ended
God
up
damn it.
watching Days of Heaven and you really enjoyed it as well.
I did. Yes. I
Yeah.
did like that.
Beautiful.
Very, very beautiful. All right, Angie, thank you so much for joining us here on.
Thank
I was gonna
you. Thank you for
yeah.
having me on. It's so nice to meet you guys.
Pleasure is
Thanks.
ours. Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
what
much.
y'all do. All right.
All
Bye.
right, by the way, Angie, what is that?
And then I will send you Gremlins.
Oh,
I will send you Gremlins, and then you can come back on and to talk about Gremlins.
okay. All right.
By the way, that is a beautiful piece of art or photo that you
I
have.
did this because I wanted something interesting behind me. That's a photograph I took of it's a stairwell built by Frank Lloyd Wright, or designed by him, at the Rookery in Chicago.
That is
I love Art
beautiful.
Deco, so I just wanted something interesting behind it.
I do remember you mentioning that you were a fan of Art Deco. Anything you can say about that? Like kind of what draws you towards that? I know we normally talk about movies, but Art Deco is art as movies is.
No, I guess just
All right.
the time periods and just romantic. I like Art Deco.
Yeah.
It's romantic, it's sleek, it's modern, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous. It has that steampunk vibe to it. When you come out to Los Angeles, Angie Clark,
Ah,
you're definitely got to go around Pasadena and Hancock Park to see some of Los
That would-
Angeles' most treasured Art Deco
all right. All right.
buildings. All right, well, take care.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, guys, we are back. Bruce Purkey, you are closing out this very meaty, masterful masterpiece show. Not because of us, maybe because of Angie, but especially because of the quality of movies that we have. All masterpieces. Well, we liked all of us. I liked Wild River. We ended up liking Wild River as well. So 3 masterpieces, a movie that we all liked. So Rudderless might be the best one out of the lot. Selected by the wonderful Brian O'Connell, OG Cinematics member. That's this recommendation, Brian O'Connell. Thank you so much. He's been wanting me to see it for years. Can't wait to see Bruce Purkey. What's in the box? What you thought of Rudderless? Might be you love music. You were in a band. You were in the 80s. You are.
I was in a folk band with
no. You were in a punk band. You
with
Nirvana,
Anton Yelchin. Me and Anton, we went way back.
So
in the
you
early
know
days.
music. You know your music. Yes.
Yeah.
Rudderless. What do you think?
Oh boy. I hate being the downer after all this awesomeness. Well, the other 2 people here with me have seen Rudderless as well. I said, please guys watch Rudderless, because I'm not digging Rudderless so much. Rudderless is not working for me. So I'm hoping one of them is gonna salvage it. The basic concept of Rudderless is, well, first of all, directed by William H. Macy. Obviously, very famous. We love him as an actor, especially. So basic concept. You've got Billy Crudup's character, Sam. His son and him are going to meet. Sam is like a corporate business dude. Seems pretty successful, probably pretty rich. He wants to have lunch with his son. His son's going to get ready to go to class in college. And his son says, yeah, I don't know, Dad. And he's like, oh, come on. Sometime later, you see that Dad's been stood up at lunch, and on the TV, there's been a shooting at the college, and his son is one of the victims. And that kicks off the entire drama. And then basically you see a really short downfall. You can see he's getting drunk a lot. He's not dealing with it well. I think it's 2 years later, and you see him living on a boat, a very rich boat in a nice lake, but he's living on a boat. He's kind of a drunk. And lo and behold, he gets a box of his son's music demos, and thus begins Billy Crudup's rise to musical local greatness, I guess, as he meets up with Anton Yelchin and some other people. Yeah, this movie was very corny to me. I'm sorry, guys.
Anton Yelchin plays a wannabe musician who listens to Sam, played by Billy Crudup, perform one evening at a local bar, lounge, music venue in their small town that they live in, and he just becomes enraptured with the song, and then they end up forming
Stocksy.
they end up forming a de facto band, and it's about their relationship, Sam's relationship with this young kid, and how Sam tries his best, even though he's pushing at it. He's trying. Sam doesn't even want to get back into civilization. He would rather just live on the boat by the lake, just paint houses. And because he probably has a ton of money saved up, even after 2 years, he's probably living high off the hog, or at least he has enough money to live off on that he can actually pick up day jobs and doing houses, and just what it's probably his beer money and just living money off of the lake. So not too much of a mortgage there, but the boat, like Bruce said, is expensive. Lawrence Fishburne plays the owner of a local music shop, and that's sort of another hub within the town. I ended up really enjoying this movie. Bruce, you were talking about how The Killing of Two Lovers, you can actually, the way it's shot, you could see from one end of the town to the other. You really get a sense of place. I'm not saying William H. Macy does a fantastic job like the filmmaker from The Killing of Two Lovers as far as giving a sense of place, but the locale of this movie, I actually fell in love with. I like the park and the lake and the local, just the whole local small town vibe of Rudderless. I enjoy the chemistry between Anton Yelchin and Billy Crudup, who's pretty much an a-hole for much of the movie. And I am, look.
And then there's a twist, and he's a bigger a-hole.
There's a big, and look, I did not. Bruce and I were around the same age, where I unfortunately was not a fan of punk rock growing up. I was not as sublime or as intelligent as Bruce Purkey in the 80s. So I loved in the 80s and 90s. I loved a lot of alt music. I love that stuff. I love the music. After watching Rudderless, I went to Spotify and I started playing tracks from Rudderless on the way to pick up my niece Claire from school. So overall, a very interesting movie. I'm glad. Thank you, Brian O'Connell, for actually recommending Rudderless. Glad I saw it. I'm surprised it took me so long to see this. And rest in peace, Anton Yelchin. He's very good in this movie as well, as is Billy Crudup. I liked it. Bruce, you said it was corny. Where do you land, Eric Holmes?
I think we have a painted bird situation. There was well, first of all, I love the music in this. It reminded me a lot of like Two Cow Garage and Micah Schnabel. The lyrics in the songs in this movie, I had to kind of do my best to ignore because they're really bad. But the songs themselves are catchy, and I enjoyed listening to those. I guess the fact that the lyrics are bad kind of makes sense when you find things out. I don't know how to say this. Bands don't work like they do in this movie. In fact, nothing involving music works like they portray it in this movie. This seems like it was, instead of being like you watch Green Room. You can tell that Jeremy Saulnier has probably been in bands, at the very least been to a bunch of shows. He knows that world. I mean, it's stylized with the hazy green and everything, but the Green Room looks like a movie of someone that has been there before. This movie comes across as someone that watched a lot of movies about bands and then just kind of maybe sort of glean what they think might happen, but they also have good taste in music, so that they manage to put good music within. There was a bunch of, kind of like I mentioned with The Whole Truth with Keanu Reeves. Like if you're a lawyer, the movie's going to make you pull your hair out. And this is kind of the choices they made of the air quote band stuff just made me want to pull my hair out. They didn't do the having a conversation with each other while on stage playing. They didn't do that. So that was like the only thing they didn't do. And I was happy they avoided that. And the ending, I think, was a huge misfire. Now, that is an interesting thing to make a movie about, but the way they handled it,
that's a tough one. I might have
I could see many people watching this and getting to that ending part and then just like fucking throwing them, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I could see people getting offended by the way they handled that ending. That said, and this goes more towards Greg's side, I still enjoyed it. Like it was stupid, it was cheesy, but the music kind of carried me through. And quite honestly, Anton Yelchin carried me through. And then every once in a while I see William H. Macy going, what the hell is he doing here? And then
Yeah.
but
I actually
yeah.
really agree with you on the music. The music is good. I agree with you absolutely on the band stuff being the weird part of it, and the music is fine. For me, this is just for my personal taste. I think this movie would be 1,000% better if the main character and the person we followed was Anton Yelchin.
Interesting point.
I would actually I would say this movie would be better instead of having that ending, keeping that as a twist. I would say this movie would be better if that was the point.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what this movie is, because it is what the movie's about, but you don't know until you get to the end. And by the time they tell you it, it's just tone deaf.
And the fact that you don't know,
motherfucker.
For me, the fact that you don't know makes you like, why am I following this asshole?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel. Whereas you could have it, you could either have it, like you said, as the whole point, or you could have it as the twist. But if that twist happened to your main character because they're related to this other person in the band, they're not the person in the band. You know what I mean? Like if Anton Yelchin is your focus and this occurs, then you'd be like, holy shit. I don't know. I'm just kind of rewriting it, obviously, but that the main crux, the main twist of this movie, that was my biggest problem, is that I was like, why am I following this guy? And what is the redemption? That was my question. So,
all right. Oh, also, Selena Gomez is in this, and we'll skip past that because who cares?
Totally.
But
one of the things on this is with Selena Gomez in this movie, she's fine in this movie, but her character just pops up like just out of
She's
nowhere.
literally standing
there's
in the
no character
shadows.
there. She pops in every once in a while going, I can't believe you're playing the songs. What are you playing those songs for? And then of course when you find out, it totally makes sense. But now
she's like I think I called her the ghost of Exposition Past. Like she just appears.
I think this movie's biggest flaw is that the story it wants to tell, it's not telling it because it's keeping that for a twist. When it should lean into that aspect of, because that's an interesting story, but that's not the story. Like, that's the story they're telling after the fact, and it's kind of like, why? Just tell that story. Be open about that, and the amount of talent they like, the actors they have involved in this, and and again, it's a fun movie, but man, it could have been a fantastic movie. Like the pieces, the ingredients are there. What was it? It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's like the ingredients of a cake. Wow, we get to eat cake? No, the ingredients of cake.
That's funny. So that is Rudderless. I recommend the movie. I thought the movie worked. I enjoyed it. I believe, Eric Holmes, you give it a not a recommend.
I enjoyed it while I was watching it. And if someone else had it on, I'd watch it again. But there are also a bunch of just heavy things that really frustrated me, and one thing in particular actually kind of pissed me off.
All right, and Bruce, definitely no recommend on this movie on Rudderless. So
I'm so sorry, Brian. I hate it. I hate it, but I have to be honest.
Well, thank you so much, Brian.
Oh yeah, by the way, there's nothing on Brian. I don't hate you. I like you.
I like a lot of movies that people hate, so don't you? That means nothing.
Brian O'Connell, if you like Billy Crudup, I love Billy Crudup. I have a recommendation for you and for all the listeners. Movie from Billy Crudup that I really loved is a 2000 film called Waking the Dead, directed by Keith Gordon, starring Crudup and Jennifer Connelly. That's a movie that hardly anybody has seen. It's based on a Scott Spencer novel. I think you can actually watch it on Tubi. Very memorable movie. Eric Holmes.
I do want to say that I am glad I saw this movie, because there's the not that, like, a train wreck is interesting, but but this, I don't know, I'm trying to do a mea culpa and it sounded worse, but it's there's definitely lessons here to be learned.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I want someone I just want someone to remake this movie and keep
Brian,
the music.
I enjoyed Rudderless. I thought it was rudderful. I don't even know if that's a word. I enjoyed Rudderless.
We've lost our minds. It's done. We lost our minds.
But anyways, so Bruce, what's in the box? Shake, shake, shake. What's in the effing box?
What's in the box, Bruce? What's in the box?
Very
that was
good.
a
That's a
terrible
nice.
song.
Yeah,
Was
that's
it-
good. That's a good
Not,
song.
not as good as the songs in Rudderless. That one was kind of
Yeah.
one
What
was
you
kinda
got,
lacking.
Bruce?
Well, isn't this funny? My kid's been waiting and waiting. His not been picked yet. Don't worry. There is a turd in the box put in by my kid. It has not popped up yet.
Can it?
He's waiting patiently. Usually at this point of the show, he's literally sitting outside the door to see if I'll pick his movie. I have not. He's like cracking the door right now. Actually, kind of fitting. Peter Beta from Middle Class Film Class. Listen to
Yes.
this week's episode if you'd like to hear me talk about Return of the Living Dead. Anyway,
Wait, Bruce, did you on Middle Class Film Class? Did you bring the whole group down? Because they're good. Did you, because you brought the Find Your Film energy? Did you lower?
Yeah,
Did you lessen the quality?
probably.
What happened? Was it fun?
Probably. I put that extra sauce that just ruined the whole pot of stew.
The stink
I
of
just-
Find Your Film permeated
Yes.
into other podcasts.
Yeah. So this is great. One of you guys has got to watch this movie if you haven't seen it, and I've only seen parts of this movie, so I'm going to go through the whole thing. Post Tenebras Lux,
Oh, Post Tenebras.
2012 by Carlos Reigades, I believe is how you say his name.
Yes.
This will be an interesting one.
I guess this is a good excuse as any to finish it. I started that. And,
Oh,
Uh,
Peter Beta.
does it get better, or is that just stay that rough throughout?
I don't know. We're going to find out.
All right. So that
It's
is.
a beta.
By the way, Peter Beta, the guardian of probably the biggest turtle I've ever seen in my life. That is not a euphemism. He actually is the
not a
guardian
turtle,
of a
it's a
really
tortoise.
big tortoise. Oh, wait, there's a big difference between tortoise and turtle, right?
Oh,
There has to be. I'm sorry, Pete, for that. But that is, yeah, check out Pete and his crew over at Middle Class Film Class. Bruce Purkey is on this week. That was good. That was fun, Bruce. You had a good time on the pod?
I'm just a little teeny. I just recorded a little thing. They threw it on. They're probably throwing it on there. They might have cut me out of it. I don't even know.
They should not have.
Maybe
Pete,
I won't. They'll just say, yeah, he's not on here. We don't want to talk to him.
Yes, listeners, if you listen to Middle Class Film Class and it gets to Bruce, just do the emergency broadcast system thing for about 5 minutes. Just let it go run right through. Right, Bruce? But
Fair
okay.
enough. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
After
Okay.
after being mean to Brian O'Connell, I deserve it.
Brian, anyways, that is it for this week. Eric Holmes, final thoughts?
Apologies to Jeffrey Basson for forgetting your
Jeffrey
name earlier.
Basson.
Jeffrey
But
Basson.
as you know, and I've said many times, and I'm guessing that Greg and Bruce have the same thing. Our brains don't work good all the time.
Yeah,
JeffreyBasson.com.
Jeffrey Basson, filmmaker. Yes, very good. Jeffrey Basson, JeffBasson.com, either or. He's a very talented artist, filmmaker. We loved having him on the show as well. We had a great conversation about Days of Heaven. And he also, thanks to him, I actually rewatched Night of the Hunter. So thank you, Jeff, for that. Thank you, Angie Clark, for joining us on this episode of Find Your Film with Wild River. And we are closing out as per usual, as every other week, with Bruce Purkey's final thoughts.
Poop Brain Perky signing out.
We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week watching movies.